Kids absorb everything, every word, all the energy you put out. Like, go get some counseling. I would never wish on another father or human being to not know where their kids are.
Yeah.
I'll get this grandiose story I want to tell of the nostalgic past. Oftentimes I get carried away and I'll use it against you. I shouldn't have told that story.
Hi, I'm Tony Cooper. This is the Dad Manual Podcast. I am here today with one of my favorite dads. You are Kirsten and Izzy's dad. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I am Jay Vincent. I'm a great dad and I have some wisdom to share.
You have wisdom to share. You also have a colorful life to share. And what I really appreciate about getting to know you and learning about your life is how much your growth and transformation is completely aligned with your fathering journey. And that who you were and who you became was the beginning of who you were as a dad, and that you've really found a different path and transformed in many ways. So I'm really excited that we get to dig in and talk about that. And I just thank you for being here today, Jay.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Yeah. Okay. So where should we begin? Why don't you tell me about your kids?
So I have two girls. They're both teenagers. My oldest daughter's name is Kirsten. She's 19 years old. She's going to be 20 on June 30th. So she's amazing. And then I have Izzy, and she's amazing in her own right. And she is 18 years old. She just turned 18 in February. They are fastly becoming closer friends, which is really cool. I just wouldn't have it any other way than to have daughters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you identify with being a girl dad?
100%, man.
Did you think that's who you were going to be, or is that a kind of the blessing of just how things turned out?
I'd say it's kind of a combination, but earlier on, I grew up with an older sister, and my dad wasn't around from the time that I was 15 on. So it was like my sister and my mom. So I always have gotten along pretty good with ladies and women, and now I've got girls. And
yeah, man, just look at you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's that, but I've never really been a ladies' man in that respect. But in the respect of just, I've always gotten along really well with feminine energy. And, at the same time, there's the innate kind of instinctual thing where like, I want to have a boy, da-da-da-da-da. But that went away fairly quickly. And it was like, okay, we've got two girls and we get to enjoy this.
It's so funny when Olivia, my oldest, was born. We didn't do any testing to know what her gender would be. And so we were like, let's just be surprised when the birth happens. And I was 100% convinced that Olivia was going to be a boy. I grew up with two brothers. I didn't have a sister. I wasn't really exposed to girl growing up. So I was like, I have no idea how I would even raise a daughter. That feels so foreign to me. And then she's born and she's not a boy. And my first thought was like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, how am I going to raise a daughter? And then when Leo was born 18 months later, I was convinced he was going to be a girl. So I'm over 2.
Surprise.
And he's born. And it was like, I don't know how I'm going to be a dad to a boy. Like, I have no idea, because I had so instantly just become, I'm raising daughters. Like, that just became such an identity. So the fact that I now have both is interesting, but I know what you mean, where you're like, I was interested in, I thought I'd want to be a boy dad, but then when the girls came along, you're hooked. It's such there is something about daddy and daughter. Like, there's a connection there. That's a pretty special thing.
Well, I will say that I kind of did get the experience of my oldest being into like boy stuff. She's always been super athletic, and she power lifts, which is kind of rare for a female, and she cheerleads. So I kind of got both with her, So I'm like, I was worried about it at first with the powerlifting, and she's won the national championships the last 2 years in a row. And now I'm out there screaming.
Powerlifting?
Yeah.
National champion. Holy cow.
2 years in a row. Yeah.
Damn.
She didn't compete this year.
I'm a little stupid. It's like, is that when you lean over and pick the thing up and Is it go over your head, or is it like what? It's just the lift.
Well,
What's
that's
the
a
power
clean
lift?
and jerk, and that's an Olympic
Okay.
sport of its own, but
Okay.
it's a combination of three different exercises. It's
Uh-huh.
bench press,
Okay.
squat, and deadlift. And
Oh,
she can
okay.
easily deadlift 350 pounds, and she weighs about 120 wet. So,
No
like,
way.
she's a beast. And at the same time, she's, kind of tiny, smaller, and she's a flyer. So they throw her up in the air when she's cheerleading
Okay.
and stuff. So she goes from one spectrum to the other with the way
That's
she balances
wild.
herself. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, and I'm cheering in both realms, man. Yeah.
That's amazing. How cool. How cool. Yeah, so let's dig in a little bit about your childhood because that's where, as we as dads, start to get an idea of what being a dad's like because we have a dad. So,
Yeah.
what was your upbringing like that led you on the path to becoming a dad, and how all that formed?
Well, my childhood was, I grew up in I had my mom's side of the family, my dad's side of the family. And my mom's side of the family were very traditional Italian, super loving. You always knew what was going on emotionally. And then my dad's side of the family, they were a little bit more closed off. He came from more of just kind of a different sort of background, like farmers and stuff like that. So they were kind of like rub some dirt on it.
Mm-hmm.
So my childhood, my dad and I actually did a lot when I was younger. We were in Boy Scouts, and we had this thing called Indian Guides up north, which was a Native American culture that was kind of a
Mm-hmm.
spinoff. We go hunting and fishing and camping. And so he was very much active in my youth, and we were pretty close. So he was my hero when I was younger, just the way he set the example of showing me all that stuff, which essentially paved the path to me being a biologist who started their own business. And now I have a pest control business, but essentially it's still biology in a way. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so he helped mold the path, probably unknowingly helped mold the path of who I am today with my interests.
What were some of those like experiences that you remember that were just like classic, like, oh man, I love my dad so much moments?
Oh boy, I mean, so growing up in Michigan, we used to go and drive up to Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and we would go camping a lot. We had a pull behind camper, an Airstream, one of those big silver old school ones, and
Mm-hmm.
we traveled all across the U.S. And I just thought it was the neatest thing ever that I could experience doing that, and we did it every summer. So
Mm.
that was super cool. It was a lot of freedom, a lot of adventure. I'm talking. This is when I was like 3 to 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So now I love traveling, of course, because that's experiencing life. As in terms of kind of who my dad was, like as a family man, he was, I've taken a different approach than he did. I think that we kind of take what our parents teach us and we take the good and we leave whatever else.
Yeah.
And so his approach was kind of like rub the dirt on it. We don't talk about it. Let's go do something. He was kind of a doer. And my approach is more emotional because obviously I have two girls. And so I like to be transparent and talk about feelings and goals and passions and dreams. And me and my dad really never talked about any of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether that was a 1980s kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot of that going on. Just kind of more like, okay, go ahead and play. We'll see you at dinner. That was more the approach.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all have our own experiences, but now that I've done this quite a bit and talked to people about their dads, a lot of the dads sound pretty similar.
Yeah.
Just like their provider, protector was kind of fun, but emotionally unavailable, and didn't really have much emotional regulation, and probably did a better job than his dad. It's sort of like there's a particular frame in which a lot of those dad descriptions fit in. But like your specific experience with your dad, so it went from kind of idyllic as a little kid, and then as you got older and went into your teens, just what was the rest of your relationship like with your dad?
So as I got past the age of 10, and I think this was also awareness, my dad started to get pretty in the throes of alcoholism. So he started to become
We didn't start until you were older, or you just only learned about it then?
well, he was always a heavy drinker, but
Mm-hmm.
there was a point where it started to get kind of like we were being held prisoner in our own house. You
What
know what I'm
was it
saying?
like? What did you notice?
We were walking on eggshells. You
Mm.
didn't know what would make him mad and what that might look like. He would wake up in super bad moods, probably because he was super hungover, I would guess. And then at night when he would come home, he would just kind of lock himself in the back room, and nobody was allowed to go on that side of the house. And
Mm.
when he came out, it was somebody that you didn't really want to be talking to. So it went from having a dad that growing up, like doing all this stuff as a family, to a transitionary point where him and my mom's marriage started to fail. And, my mom did only what she knew to do best, was to stay with him, for the
Hmm.
next 3 or 4 years. And
Yeah.
then he left when I was 15. It kind of all came crashing down, and he decided to move out, and I didn't talk to him. He lived a mile down the street from me, and I didn't talk to him from the age of 15 to the age of probably 21.
Oh shit! Like he didn't want anything to do with you. Well, he's the adult in the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think he only dealt with it the only way he knew how, which was to not deal with it, because he came
Mm.
from a stock of long line of alcoholics who were pretty abusive. And whatever happened between him and my mom, I think there was some infidelity, probably some shame, going on with him. And he just decided to dip out. And there was also, I think, a child support thing and a divorce thing going on for a while, to where after I turned 18, then he knew I didn't have to pay it,
Hmm.
kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for him, but I would assume that was the reason why. But he went
Yeah.
on to another marriage to do the same exact thing. I have a half sister, actually, from another family, that he did the same thing to. Gosh, it was probably about close to 20 years later, 15 years later. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Wow. Well, look, obviously, all you can speak about is your experience, but your experience of being a kid and having that dad who was like adventurous and having fun and expanding your world, to like a dad that was kind of scary, certainly unavailable, to a dad that's just gone. That's three different dads that you live with or that you experience. Like, what was the impact on you?
I became an angry kid
Hmm.
at about the age of 15, and I was uber involved in music. I was very artistic. So I played the guitar. I was a traditionally trained jazz drummer. And I was also involved in soccer and wrestling. And I played a slew of other sports when I was younger. And honestly, by the time I was to the age of 16, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I kind of went over to the dark side and started hanging out with some of we called them burnouts back in high
Hmm.
school. They wore the jean jackets, and they were the
Hmm.
kids that got in trouble and pushed the envelope of experimenting. And I'll put it that way. And so I became more exploratory.
And kind of moved away from more traditional expressions, more, sports and music. Like both of those things kind of went away for you.
I was still in the weight room,
Hmm.
but it was not for training for sports, and
Hmm.
such. And then I actually started to get into listening to a lot of heavy metal. Like it seemed to suit my rebel spirit and my
Hmm.
anger. So I got into listening to like some pretty heavy stuff, and then I started to switch from playing blues on the guitar to like more distortion type stuff. So
Hmm.
still kept the music, but put the sports on the back burner and just decided to kind of hang out. And what I really needed was I needed to have a dad that was around,
Yeah.
because I just ran all over my mom. I mean, bless her soul, man. She's so amazing.
Hmm.
I've got an amazing mother. She just didn't know what to do with me, man.
Right. So then how does that lead to you becoming a dad?
So, I mean, for many years, I kind of went down that road. I became kind of a jam band type of guy, and I followed the Grateful Dead for a while. And then I got into the rave scene and started DJing and dancing. I picked up dancing in my 20s, where I became a break dancer and a hip hop dancer. And I met someone in college. All the midst of the while, I somehow made it to college by some miraculous chance. I don't know how I got through it, and I met their children's mother at a bar, and we just shot pool, and we both partied a lot. And that was just, that whole lifestyle involved me with getting involved with her. And we stayed together for a few years and had our first child, Kirsten.
Like, did you guys say, let's have a kid or?
I'm so glad you're asking me this. So we tried to have some kids probably about 4 years into the relationship, and we had 5 miscarriages in a row.
Oh man.
And so that was crushing.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I mean, she would tell me she was pregnant, and I'd be like, oh, by the third or fourth time, I just was very disconnected.
Yeah.
I was still kind of angry considering the fact that I'd never dealt with any of the anger and processing my emotions around my dad,
Yep.
that all the dreams of being a dad were being crushed.
Mm.
And I ended up developing being super closed off on top of being angry. So that was a rough few years. We found out we were low on estrogen and ended up getting the cream, and she rubbed it on her belly, and along came Kirsten.
No way. Wow. Did you really want to be a dad? Like, was that something that was true for you, or were you just kind of following it? Because, like as I hear your story and think about the role model you had as a dad, I mean, that's a pretty good sales pitch to not want to do it. So, how did you feel about it?
That's a great question. So Angie and I didn't have the best relationship as in terms of the health of it, because we were in a lifestyle that just didn't afford you to be super grounded. It was more
So,
a lot
just
of partying.
partying and,
Yeah.
yeah, irresponsible. And,
We liked the idea of having a child, but we didn't know how to be parents. Like neither
right.
of us. She came from a very broken family, more so than even mine. And I think it was more the idea of having a kid was amazing, but I don't think we were grounded enough into what that would look like when she came along.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Uh,
Didn't do our research. We didn't have any practice. We had no
yeah.
idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
So along came Kirsten, and we're still choosing to be in the same lifestyle that we were in before we had her, which didn't suit having a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. How old were you?
So when Kirsten came along, I'm 53 now. She's about to be 20. I was 33. Yeah,
Okay.
we were
So you're
older.
old enough. You're old
Yeah,
enough to maybe know better.
we were. We tried for a few years. We were together a while, and it was just honestly like when Kirsten came along, I was at the point where I wanted to give up. Because I was just super angry. I felt like I was being punished somehow. This is against me. Why is this happening? That sort of thing. And then she came along and it was like, surprise.
Mm-hmm.
We were planning, but
Right.
we tried for so long. I didn't think it was possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you had a lot of disappointment, and all your history is telling you it's not going to work. So I can see where you'd get to that place.
Yeah. And so then along comes Kirsten, this beautiful, amazing, pudgy little girl. She was so pudgy. She was just like a big little pudgy ball. And we are fighting worse than ever. So we brought a child into an environment with a lot of arguing.
Mm-hmm.
If I could give any advice to anyone on any like a mistake that I've made with fatherhood, is kids absorb everything, every word, every emotion, all the energy you put out. Like, go get some counseling if you're not
Mm-hmm.
getting along, because it's important.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest regrets as a dad, is just winging it, not really going to get any help for, years. And then our kids coming up into that environment. We can fast forward into the rest of that story. After Kirsten was born, Izzy came along 19 months
Mm-hmm.
later.
That's quick.
It is quick. And that one was like, oh, we're pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't freaking love my daughter Izzy. She's freaking amazing. She's hilarious. She's artistic. Just,
Yeah.
it's like both my kids are me, like split into different kids. One's athletic and super outgoing. The other one's artistic and funny, and so it's
Yeah.
like me. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. But, we didn't plan for Izzy. And so that just kind of added some fuel to what we were already dealing with, which was not getting along.
You're already kind of failing at what you're doing, and you're like, oh, great, we get double down on it now. That's a tough spot.
My oldest, Kirsten, had colic.
Mm.
So the only way she could go to bed is if you picked her up and rocked her to sleep, or took her on a walk, or took her in the car. So there was a lot of driving and walking, and
Mm-hmm.
you put her down, and then you wake up. And so, having kids, man, your sleep patterns, at least our sleep patterns, changed,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It is kind of wild. That's the first thing that you learn, is that, well, babies are not on adult waking and sleeping patterns. Like, I don't know why that wasn't obvious, but like once you start to realize, like, they eat every few hours, which means they're not sleeping through the night. and they don't know how to sleep exactly. And some of them are easier than others. And when Leo was like 6 months old, I was just like, I don't think we've had one straight night of sleep in 6 months, like, and very interrupted. And then it really dawned on me, I'm like, how am I operating still? Like, it's kind of crazy that you can still keep going with that little sleep. So I think, yeah, you definitely learn a lot of interesting things about yourself when you become a parent.
You do, and one of which is you think you're patient, but when the kids come along, your patience is like, wow. And so one of the things that I developed on later in life was working on myself, meditating, making sure I'm taking time to take care of me, which are some of the tools when I was a younger dad that I didn't implement
Mm-hmm.
right away. It was more very outwardly kind of focused, like this is why I'm like this instead of I'm like this so I can be this for them, right?
Yeah.
Which is really the definition of fatherhood for me, is just developing yourself and getting grounded and getting all the tools you can spiritually and emotionally and physically to take care of yourself so you can be the rock for your family, you know?
Yeah. So how did you get to that place? Because you guys are still partying, you're arguing, you guys are, like you said, not creating a great home environment. You got these two little kids. How did you get from that chaos to what you're talking about now?
So there is a journey involved from the time that Izzy was born until where I'm at now. And
Okay.
when she was 8.5 months old, their mother decided to leave.
Oh.
So my youngest one was 8.5 months. My oldest one was about 2.5,
Mm-hmm.
and they dipped. I came home to an empty house. Everything was gone.
Without a word, just disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I was down in Hilton Head visiting my dad, and typically, Angie would usually come with me, and the kids would come with, or at least my oldest one was used to come. She'd been down there a couple times, and I was expecting them to come. She was going to come follow me, but the plan, I guess, for her was not to follow and to move everything out, and so I didn't hear from them.
Take me to that moment. Like you walk in and your family's gone. I don't know how you felt about Angie not being there, but your two daughters aren't there. Like, what was that like for you?
I mean, coming home to an empty house, the feeling of dread and deep sadness was just something that, I mean, that was one of the lowest moments of my life. I can't even describe the feeling other than I've lost everything. I'm alone. Where are they? Worry, dread, all these feelings that, I would never wish on another father or human being to not know where their kids are.
Yeah.
That is scary. And so on top of it, poor guy, we had this guy, his name was Brian. We went to college together. We reunited, and he was living with us. Man, the hell that we had to have put this human being through with all the fighting and stuff. He said, hey, man, he was there. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, she left. And I'm like, why didn't you call me? And he was like, man, I'm sorry, I wanted to, but she asked me not to. And I said, I understand. And he's like, so I'm moving out tomorrow.
Fuck.
So he moves out the next day.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Wow. You said before Kirsten was born, you were at a pretty low point. So this sounds even lower.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And, we would always talk and we would fight and we would say, hey, this isn't working. We either need to go get some counseling or we need to not be together and figure it out. But, you say all those things and you say them out of spite. And again, words are very powerful. Eventually she left. And to be honest with you, the way that our relationship was going, it makes sense that she left because it was starting to get kind of scary. And so she took the kids and moved back to Ohio.
So when did you find out where she was and where the kids were and how did that start to reform for you?
It took a few months
Jesus. Oh my.
to find out where they were. And she would go through these phases where she would contact me and want to work on whatever was going on with us and kind of regress as in terms of with her standing in her decision and want to get back together. And then she wouldn't. It was kind of this weird thing. And then she's like, well, if you want to come and visit, you're going to have police surveillance on you. And I'm like, for what? And we didn't have a good relationship. It was never like that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So that was weird. And considering my lifestyle, I'm like, police, kids, that doesn't mix. And
Mm-hmm.
either way, I came up for a dance battle called Scribble Jam back in the day. Eminem won it back in 96, I think. And it was an MC battle, DJ, beatbox, and breakdancing and graffiti. They had like all of the elements of hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And so I came up for that, and that was the first time I got to see him because I was with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew one of them and trusted it enough for me to see him. And that kind of broke the seal with me being able to see them. And then it started to become where I started to come up more often. But my addiction and alcoholism started to get really advanced after they left. And I had 2 DUIs by the same cop on the same road within a couple of months after them leaving.
Damn. Uh-huh.
In the same stretch of a mile. I think he targeted me the second time, pretty sure. But
Mm-hmm.
I honestly would shake his hand today if I could ever see him. I hated him at the time. Like I
Mm-hmm.
dodged that for 3 or 4 years in court until it all came down.
Mm.
But I would shake his hand today because that man stayed after me. He kept showing up in court, and he's like, this guy needs help. Because the second time I was in the back of his squad car, I broke down and told him everything. My kids are gone. I've got drinking issues. I've got drug issues. I need help. I honestly don't remember it a lot. I remember like spots, but it was like he was the only person at that time I had to talk to.
Damn.
And he stayed after my ass, man. He made sure that I went to a 12-step program.
Okay. And did that help?
So, yeah, I mean, I dodged it for 3 or 4 years. So this all happened in 2008 when they left. And in 2011, it all started coming down the pipe. And it was like, the lawyers, they took my money and were like, I think we could fight it. And then when it all came down to it, they're like, nah, you're pretty much fucked. They're going to nail you to the wall. And I'm like, oh, great. So $11,000 later, you tell me it's not going to work. Which, yeah, I mean, they had me red-handed. And it took me about a year from 2011 to 2012 of making a decision on whether I wanted to change. But it came down to a night in my apartment after I'd moved out. It's actually November 21st, 2012, where I got on my knees and I just cried out for help. And I just said, I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
I'd already been through the court system for a year and going to, these meetings and, those people are not like me kind of attitude and just getting my paper signed. But I had a moment of clarity in my apartment where I honestly did not want to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'd missed my kids. I felt like I was a prisoner to my devices and the substances and stuff.
And all roads were leading in the wrong direction.
They were, because what this really scary thing is what once was a solution to numb out was not working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it just was not working. So I still felt all the pain times 10, and my solution wasn't working anymore. So I was at the dropping off point, is what they call it in recovery. And so it's like you can't live with it and you can't live without it. And you really are just at this point where you don't know how to live.
Yeah.
That same meeting I went to the next day, I'd asked a gentleman to help me and to be my mentor. They call it a sponsor in the program. And me and him went through some work, and I stayed sober and coming up on 14 years. So,
hey, well done, man. What decision did you have to make, and how much of it was connected to you being a dad?
All of it. So the decision I had to make was I was thinking to myself, I don't want to be here anymore. And I had my 38 pretty close at hand, where I was thinking about using it, and it was starting to get kind of scary. Like, I'm like, okay, this is dark, and I don't want my kids to remember me this way.
Mm.
And I don't want to be remembered this way. It was my biggest fear that they're going to find me in my apartment dead, whether it was either from an overdose or from taking my life. And they were literally in the forefront of my mind, where it was like, I have to be there for them. I get to be there for them. And then you get further along in recovery, and it's like, it starts to become about you. Like, because if you can't strengthen yourself and get tools and grow, then it's not really good to anyone else if you're just not drinking and using, because that same very person that drank and used, if you don't change, will go back and do the same thing again. They're the entire reason why, because I wanted nothing more than to be a dad, because my dad wasn't there for me, right? And I'm going through the same cycle, but I'm like, how did I get here? This is exactly what I didn't want.
Yeah.
It's like a generational cycle,
Yeah.
right? And I'm so proud to say that I'm not trapped in that cycle anymore. My kids have much more tools and avenues and an open dad who's willing to supply whatever they need, for support.
Right.
I didn't have any of that. So
Yeah. So at this point, I mean, you didn't really have that much of a relationship then with your kids. Like, how well did they know you?
it was weird. Like the first few times I visited them, since it had been so long, like my oldest one remembered me, but my youngest one had no idea who I was. And it was so sad the first time I
Ugh.
visited, because she was like, she just like, she didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And so that was heartbreaking. And of course, I went through several more years of that before I got sober, but it started to become so painful that it was like, that was the entire motivation of like, this, something's got to change. This is not,
Yeah.
like, the facade of pretending everything was okay became unbearably hard.
I just feel so painful as you say that. Like, I can just feel that, like, that you've got this kid, and the kid's like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And maybe like, I don't trust you, or, not have any of that natural sort of, I love you, daddy, sort of things that you're supposed to get from a kid.
Yeah. My oldest one was very much always, attached to me. She would cry a lot when I would leave. And my youngest one was very closed off, and she still kind of is. And, I don't know whether that was why, but I was sure that probably facilitated some of that. She's just closed off in general.
But like you said, with your fighting and with the energies that we create around them, they just absorb it all, right?
Mhm.
Maybe it's not even like a memory or even a conscious thought, but like they take in everything that we're creating all time. So, yeah, I'm sure that definitely had an impact on her and has an impact on her.
Yeah. And, fast forward the story, I get sober and start to get my life together and go through get my license back and all the stuff, and start to get healthier physically and emotionally and everything. And I start to go visit more. And then their mother starts to transition into, it's not that she wasn't a partier, but like she sustained it when they were younger enough to be manageable. But then she crossed over into the other side, and they began to go through a lot of trauma and things of that, like I went through when I was a kid with her. And so then it became many years of showing up for them. And in Ohio, like, the dads don't have any rights. So it started to become like I would drive 8 hours up there, like once or twice a month, to be there for them. Sometimes she would just not show up. And I would be like calling, where are you? Like, I'm here. And like, no, you're not visiting them this time. I'm like, oh, okay. So then it would become a tug of war. Most of the times I could see him, but it started to become this insane dynamic. And I started to get my ducks in a row with my mentors. And
you're a lot clearer mentally and emotionally, and you can really you get what's going on in a really probably a deeper way, because you're not numbing yourself out to anything, and you're watching like your kids go through the same experience you had as a kid. That all must have been a lot.
I tell you what, I mean, I can't stress enough of working on yourself and your emotional bandwidth, and working with other people who are in trauma, and working, especially men, because I got involved with single men in recovery and divorced fathers in recovery nonprofit group. And what these guys did is that we donated weeks to other guys across the US in condos and stuff that needed to see their kids. And some of them were like a couple months into the journey, and some of them were 20 years into the journey. And all these guys, they just lifted me up, and I got to lift other gentlemen up. And it was very powerful, and it started to become my superpower. So what I thought was my biggest liability became my biggest asset. And it started to become not a fight, but just a matter of purpose. And this is why I'm here.
Wow, that's powerful. So how did you get to then be an active part of your kids' lives?
5 years, typically in Ohio, the magic number is 14 to 15. So my oldest one wanted to come live with me since 8. Very verbal about it. Very verbal.
She was 8 and she wanted out.
Yeah. She could see the difference in the household because, their mother was only mandated to bring them to me in the summer, and the rest of the time I had to drive them. And it was very much a one-sided. There was never any help. Like, it was, you're coming to see them, and then it was a struggle to even get her to come. So it was no co-parenting involved. They could see that their mother very much did not want to communicate with me and was difficult, or at least my oldest one could see it. And she knew something was wrong. She was like, okay, so dad's always nice. And what is going on? What's wrong? At 8 years old, she started to figure out something's wrong with mom. Youngest one has always been a little mommy's girl and just so in love with her mother. Fast forward now, she's pretty crushed by it. But you get to the age of 15, and things are starting to become so dysfunctional. Things are happening with school. There's physical abuse going on. CPS is being called outside of what we were already trying to build. And then, now they've both been with me. She let my oldest one come first. I wanted both. She'd only let my oldest one come. And then my youngest one was here within a year after.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And then, we're dealing with 2 teens that are severely traumatized through everything they went through, but they get to get the help, they get to get the support. And you want to think you're a spiritually fit dad, wait till you have 2 teenagers that have been completely traumatized move in with you and your happy little marriage you have going on, and there's just been a lot of growth in the last 5 years around the fact that I didn't know jack about raising teenagers. Still sometimes feel like I don't.
Why would you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about being a parent. It was like, why do you think we would know anything? We've never done this before, right? We're making it up as we go along. So that's the best we can do, is be present to it.
We can be. And, sometimes I get roped into the conflict, and I find myself being like, how did I get here? And then you get a choice to back away and draw boundaries and stuff, and it's always very interesting because I see a lot of myself in them too. I'm like, my God, like I know that. I remember that like it was yesterday because I didn't mature as a human being from the age of 15 when I picked up drugs and alcohol to when I got sober when I was 39. I spent 24 years as a 15-year-old emotionally.
Interesting.
So I don't forget what that looks like.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of empathy towards that. And I also, it's kind of triggering sometimes when I'm like, shit, you're me. I know that fucking trick.
Yeah. Halfway, you're like, kudos, like, well done. And you're messing with the wrong person because I invented that shit. So, pick your game up a little bit. Yeah.
It's nothing. I try not to tell the war stories though, man, because those don't help. As fathers, at least I can speak for myself. Sometimes I'll get this grandiose story I want to tell of the nostalgic past, and oftentimes I get carried away, and they'll use it against you, and you're like, "Shit, I shouldn't have told that story."
Yeah. Good move, kid. Yeah. My bad. Well, look, man, what a journey. And I know, look, you're just still on it, and your girls are still working through their past like we all are, and looking to create bright futures. And you haven't had a lot of time to work with it either, right? You're just kind of almost new to the game of being a full-time dad. So it's sort of interesting that you've been a dad for 19 years, but front and center, not really.
Yeah, not a long time, but I feel that there's just been a ton of progress made with just watching how they are developing emotionally and how they look at the world and how they know they're supported and loved. And then they kind of fall back and stuff and into old behavior, but they just know the love's here. And then look, I didn't have that as a kid. So the fact that I can offer that to them and that they feel that, my oldest one is really, she'll just tell me, you're my rock. I don't know what I'd do without you. I don't know where my life would be. And she is super driven and just feeling super supported. My youngest one she's still figuring it out, but she knows she's supported.
Yeah.
And just what a gift to be able to have that comfort, to know that you've got a parent that wants to support you, that you can be open with and tell the truth to, that has had a colorful past, and really nothing you're going to tell them is going to shake them for the most part, you know?
And your kids know that about you.
Oh, they know. Yeah, they know. They know what their mothers mostly told them about me. But yeah, again, like I've told some stories. I've got a bunch of them. There's lots of adventures, 24 years of adventures, you know, before I got sober.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, man.
Let's wrap up with just sort of thinking about your story in particular and what big lessons you've gotten along the way. And so typically I ask about like, for, you know, what advice would you have for a brand new father? But I think that's actually something I'm more interested in from you, which is because a lot of parents will find themselves in a situation where they were once a loving couple and then they had kids and then something happened and then the relationship really starts to devolve in a negative way. And I don't think people know what to do or how to think or how to approach that. So how would you, thinking back on that, if someone were to find themselves in a relationship where they're trying to be a great parent, but the relationship with the spouse is really tough, what advice would you give that person?
Well, what advice I could tell you as a father is that we have to exercise a lot of patience and a lot of listening, because we tend to take things personally and don't take yourself so seriously. Don't take everybody else so seriously. And also at the same time, take care of yourself. Grace, patience. Sometimes it's okay to just not say anything. Sometimes, you know, your wife just needs you to listen and be there for her, and rub her on the shoulder and the back and tell her you're there to listen.
Yeah.
You know, that's not always about you personally, because there's lots of changes that come along. The kids start to become very important. The romantic life sort of takes breaks at times. And, you know, you're in it to win it with that spiritual connection. And so be open to outside counseling, spending time together where the TV's not on and you're connecting and you're sitting across from each other, looking at each other, actually talking.
Yeah.
Spend time together where you're not constantly go, 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 go. And just learn how to listen.
Yeah. Well, Jay, you're a real redemption story, and I loved our conversation, and I love you, and I thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared, and I just really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thanks for having me, man. It's been great. I can't believe it's whipped by as fast as it did.
I know, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then until next time.
Till next time.
I just want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Dad Manual Podcast and for supporting dads to become the best version of themselves as they strive to bring healing and inspiration to their families. I'm looking to grow a community of fathers who are ready to change the world, but I need your help. It's super valuable to the podcast when you like an episode, when you leave us a rating and subscribe to our YouTube channel, when you follow us on Instagram at the Dad Manual Podcast, and maybe even the most important, when you share the podcast with the dad you love. Also, you can impact what we talk about here. If you've got questions or topics you want me to explore, email them to me at dadmanualpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to answer your question on our next episode. And until next time, I'm Tony Cooper, and this is the Dad Manual Podcast.